Hi, I'm Carly Reid from CX Today, bringing you all the latest news and conversation from the customer experience technology industry. Now, today I'm talking to Ian from Semafone, and we'll be discussing ways that technology can help boost CX. Welcome, Ian. Thanks for joining me today, Ian. So how about we kick off with a quick intro? Tell us about what you do.
So my name's Ian Reay, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Semafone. My background is actually call centres. So to the extent where I spent 9 months on the phone as an agent in my younger days, and sort of seeing the industry from the top down or the bottom up, whichever way you look at it. And Semafone's a business that helps organisations secure their contact centres. As everyone knows, regulation is only getting more onerous on organisations, GDPR, PCI. Semafone helps take all of that headache away. We help organisations put the customer at the heart of what they're doing day to day, without having to worry about any of the data security, the data risks, the potential fraud problems of having sensitive personal or card data sort of in their contact center environment.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Ian. So let's dive right in then. Any top tips for us on improving CX for organizations that are perhaps a little bit reliant on contact centers?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught us the importance of contact centers. I mean, I've been in the industry sort of 25 years or so, and I've always been told that they're going to disappear. And thankfully, they continue to provide me with a fantastic and interesting sort of career, and continue to be sort of really important. And I think as we've seen lots of pressure on the high street, sort of perhaps some customers not being as mobile as perhaps historically they were. What is the face of the modern sort of business? It's often their website, and often the sort of human manifestation of that is the contact center. I think we've seen lots of businesses, see their contact center as an increasingly more important part of their sort of brand and their customer-facing organization post-pandemic. And I think from that perspective, they really are at the heart of businesses' engagement with the modern sort of digitally centric consumer. I think also the evolution from the call to the contact center, so multi-channel, engagement with customers, whether it's social, whether it's sort of one-to-many communication like forums, or sort of social messaging through to one to a few in chat, or that sort of old classic of one-to-one in sort of contact center and telephone calls. I think call centers and contact centers inherently are the sort of heart of any business. And they're often the place in an organisation where you've got the majority of your staff, the majority of the people who listen and hear what customers have to say, and ultimately you're understanding where you're doing things well and perhaps where you're doing things less well. They're great learning grounds for any business, whether it's product development, whether it's pricing and commercials, whether it's what competitors are doing, etc. I think obviously it's very sort of timely with National Customer Service Week recently. Lots of sort of buzz and news about putting customers at the heart of what you do as a business. I think I'd always just advocate getting back to the front line, sitting down with your frontline staff, understanding what's working for them and what's not. That tends to be a fantastically revelatory experience for leaders, and you tend to find that the best customer experience leaders are people who spend a lot of time on contact center floors with their team, understanding what's working and what's not, and really helping drive the business and drive change from those types of conversations.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Ian, and some great tips there. Thank you for sharing. And how do you think technology is playing an increasingly important role in improving customer engagement?
So I think as any business will testify, agility is key nowadays. The number of sort of conversations or stats that you hear where consumer behaviour has shifted 10 years worth of change within a few months over the course of last year. I think agility is key. So I think having an underlying contact center infrastructure that allows you to change incrementally. Lots of talk about transformation. Transformation is an often used word, but it inherently applies a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think lots of people who work in customer-facing environments realize that change is constant. You need to constantly be sort of tweaking and evolving what you're doing to constantly hone and improve that engagement with end consumers. So I think from that perspective, having the flexibility and the tool set you've got is key. Lots of businesses are moving to cloud-based contact centers and cloud-based technology solutions. They tend to be quicker to spin up. They're more flexible from a change perspective. They're typically easier to sort of manage commercially as well. I think at a sort of agent desktop level, having that sort of single user interface that allows, contact center sort of representatives to manage multi-channel in a really easy and quick way. The sort of horror shows of having an agent toggle between 20 different screens is, the stuff of nightmares. And, when you're doing that, it just means that, it's all the harder to focus on the customer and to deliver the right type of outcomes. I think in our area, we've seen the advent of hybrid working really, drive complexity around security. So Carly now works at home. Carly's enjoying all the benefits of doing that. It's giving the contact center lots of flexibility in staffing and managing some of those peaks and troughs that every sort of consumer-facing contact center has. How do you ensure you can deliver that end-to-end customer experience in an environment where the dog might be barking in the background? You're in a situation where you might be dealing with, on a shared device, sort of personal sensitive data, payment information, etc. I mean, we've actually, Semafone have recently done a consumer survey around sort of consumer attitudes to data security. I think we found around 40% of consumers are just a little bit more concerned about how their personal data and their card data is being dealt with in that home working environment. You suddenly hear one of the kids shout in the background, or just hear a dog bark. It makes the customer on the other end of the phone think, wait a minute, where's my data going? What type of information am I passing on? And I think, technology is key in enabling that type of environment, but in a secure way as well. And that's what Semafone is there to help businesses do.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks, Ian. And last question for you today then. Why do you think it's so vital to keep customers in their channel of choice to deliver a frictionless experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as you start offering choice, then consumers like it inherently. I mean, it does create some complexity, but consumers like it. They enjoy the ability to. I mean, I certainly know I do. Picking my phone and I'll be chatting with someone on a mobile app, etc. Easier than picking up a phone and perhaps waiting a call to speak to someone, particularly if it's something relatively simple and transactional. But I want to be in a position where I can complete that whole transaction in my channel of choice. When they're suddenly saying, "Can you pop to the website? Can you call in to make a payment?" Those types of things. That's when I get a little frustrated. It's almost like the business has teased me with the potential of what the future might look like, but perhaps doesn't have the processes or the technology or the security overlay or the controls in place to really allow me to run end to end that type of transaction. I think we've seen lots of stats, that show consumers inherently are happier when they are in their channel of choice and are able to transact all the way to the end of that conversation or that chat or that messaging session, etc., in their single channel of choice. So there's lots of CX benefits. I think what businesses also see the value of from a cost to serve perspective is the ability when you are perhaps chatting with a customer on an SMS or in a forum, you've got the ability for an agent to manage multiple discussions. There's an inherent commercial rationale to do that. It drives great CX. It's nice and easy for the consumer, but it also allows the business to deliver an optimized cost to serve. Suddenly, when you start breaking that, because perhaps you might not be able to take a payment, or the customer gets jumpy about handing over certain information, or you've suddenly got an AI layer that can only do certain things and only goes so far. I mean, it's that sort of situation that perhaps tarnishes that experience that businesses are trying to drive from that single channel of choice. And ultimately allowing customers to make sure that they're not only entering a business in a certain CX channel, but they're ultimately able to get all the answers and all the problems solved in that channel and fulfill and come out the back of it happy, knowing that they've got the resolution they're looking for.
Brilliant stuff. Well, Ian, I've really enjoyed speaking to you today, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Carly. Been a pleasure. Always enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. And that's it from us. If you've enjoyed our conversation, then please do give us a shout out on social. And if you're a CX fan and want to see more like this, then you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at cxtoday.com. I'm Carly Reid from CX Today. Thanks for watching.